Today I'm building an ultra budget $250 ITX gaming PC, and I'm gonna show you that it can still play all of the latest titles. This is a combination of some very used hardware that I got some really good deals on, and if you already have your super skeptical glasses on thinking there's no way he's gonna pull this off,
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
or there has to be some massive catch, just relax and check this out. Things off with the CPU motherboard combo that I got, and honestly I don't even know how to pronounce this motherboard brand, but it's ITX and it's all white, and that's all I really needed to know. Plugged into it is the Intel i5 4690, and despite being around a decade old at this point, this can actually get the job done for someone who wants to game on an extreme budget. Moving on here though, we have some RAM, and I bought this myself including everything else. Links to all of this are down in the description, by the way. And this is a HyperX Fury DDR3 kit that's 2x8GB, and it's clocked at 1600 megahertz. Moving on for storage, we have the SSD, and I honestly didn't even consider an M.2 drive because I didn't think this ancient of a motherboard would even have a slot, much less an ITX one. So I originally just used this Samsung 860 EVO 110. This is the Thermalright Assassin X120 SE ARGB that I picked up on a crazy Amazon deal down to just $17. Because of our motherboard layout, the 120mm fan on here can't quite sit perfectly level with the heatsink, but that's not a huge deal as it has to overhang a bit. And this is actually a different fan than what it originally comes with. I didn't want it to be RGB, and I just wanted a white light, so I just threw this extra ID cooling fan that I had on here. Next up, we have the power supply, and since our ITX case, which we'll talk about in just a minute, could support ATX power supplies, I just went ahead with this ultra cheap EVGA 450BR that you can sometimes still find on EVGA B stock for around $20, which is what I paid. Power supply deals are getting tougher and tougher to find these days though, and for a build like this, you'll just want to consult your PSU tier list, and honestly just grab any tier C or tier B unit that you can find for around $30 to $40. Sale on Newegg for just $60, which felt too good to be true. Fractal Design has been pumping out some extremely high quality cases and case designs lately, and this one is certainly no different. For $60, you're getting two pre-installed black fans, an airflow design front mesh panel, full ATX power supply support to keep the build costs down, and overall I think this just looks really clean. I also really like how the PSU basement is kind of warped down here, so the bottom 140mm fan is still blowing air into the correct position, and honestly I just really recommend this case, but there is one thing that I really don't like about it. Just like the Fantex P200A, I really hate how the only locking mechanism on the back side panel is a single latch that can't be screwed down. This means that if you have any sort of bulge with your cable management, it's gonna keep coming unlatched, and it's just so annoying, and I really think that you should have a screw here. Speaking of those extensions though, today I went with some $20 easy DIY ones, and they definitely look great, but I hate when I use a GPU that doesn't require external power because that GPU power cable usually makes the build pop. The Meshify 2 Nano does indeed have a cutout and grommet here, which is really nice and a perfect spot. White extensions would look so good coming out of here, but this card just doesn't require it, unfortunately. And while we're here, the very last part of our build today is indeed the GPU, and this is the MSI GTX 1050 Ti, which you can usually find on places like Jawa, eBay, or Mercari for around $60 or so. Because used GPU prices continue to come down, it's not hard to find something like this, and you certainly have a lot of different options that you can go with, such as an RX 570 or 580, or even the GTX 1060, 970, or 1650. Now let's jump straight into some testing, and starting with Grand Theft Auto 5, here you can see that with 1080p normal settings, we actually got a very respectable 79 FPS, which is pretty solid. And for everyone's favorite Fortnite, we put the settings at the much appreciated 1080p performance mode, and we got 156 FPS, which again is pretty solid. And finally, here's what the rest of our benchmarks are looking like, and as I said in the intro, we indeed can play all of these titles with good enough FPS. Obviously that Elden Ring result isn't the best, but if you're in the market for a $250 ITX build, then this is about what you can expect. Or maybe you think you can beat my build here in terms of price to performance. The video that's on the screen now should help you out with that.